Piña Colada, classic Puerto Rican cocktail, and as someone with a sweet tooth, one of my favorites. And we can't talk about the Piña Colada without talking about cream of coconut, or specifically Coco Lopez. This product was created in 1949 when an innovative way to mix coconut cream with sugarcane was developed. And then it was only a few years later that the Piña Colada was invented. And it's a bit confusing because there are so many products around coconut. There's coconut milk, coconut cream, creamed coconut, but you want cream of coconut here. Now the blended version on the side of the can is quite tasty, but I'm going to show you how to make a delicious shaken version, starting with 3/4 of an ounce or 22 mils of our Coco Lopez cream of coconut. Now of course we need our pineapple juice. I strongly prefer fresh pineapple juice here, but you can use the store-bought kind. We're going to need 2 ounces or 60 mils into our shaker glass. Now cream of coconut is very sweet, so we're going to balance it out a bit more with some acid. I'm going to do 1/4 ounce or about 7 mils of fresh lime juice. Alright, now finally we need our rum. I prefer something with a bit more character to it, but not as much funk as say a Jamaican pot still. But here I'm going to use a Hamilton rum from Guyana, 2 ounces or 60 mils. Alright, now there's a bunch of different ways to add ice to your Piña Colada. Here I'm going to shake it with about 4 cubes for about 15 seconds or so. Alternatively, you could blend this or shake with cracked ice and just free pour it into your glass. This method I'm doing here gives you a bit of a cleaner cocktail with less dilution, but it's a little bit more labor intensive. It's cleaner in that we're going to now double strain out all of the pulp and small ice chips, and I like to use just a chilled rocks glass here, but use whatever glassware you have on hand. To keep this cool, I'm just going to add some cracked ice to the cocktail, so just grab a Lewis bag, bang up a few ice cubes, and drop them over the top. I probably add about 4 ice cubes worth of cracked ice here, and then we can go ahead and garnish that with some fresh pineapple, drop in a handy sippy cylinder, and there we go. A classic Piña Colada on the rocks. To me, this drink is just perfect. A lot of Piña Coladas are just way too sweet. This one is perfectly balanced. I find that with the blended Piña Coladas, I'm always on the clock to finish it before it dilutes it too much. I will say that this recipe is very forgiving, but with the right technique and ingredients, it's next level. Alright, we're not done yet. Here we're going to make a pretty wild but delicious variation on the Piña Colada using banana liqueur and coffee liqueur. This one is called the Caf Colada. Banana and coffee, together at last. Stay with me. Grab a shaker glass and we're going to start with 3/4 of an ounce or 22 mils of our cream of coconut. Don't know where that came from, but now we need 1/2 ounces or 45 mils of fresh pineapple juice. 1/4 ounce or about 7 mils of fresh lime juice, 1/2 ounce or 15 mils of fresh orange juice. Next up, the coffee liqueur. I like using Mr. Black because it's not very sweet, so 1/2 ounce or 15 mils in the glass. Next up, our banana liqueur, and this is a really nice product from Tempest Fugit Spirits, another 1/2 ounce or 15 mils. And finally, our rum, and this one does call for a Jamaican rum, so I'm going to use this funky pot still from Hamilton, 1.5 ounces or 45 mils. Before we shake that up, grab a glass or mug and fill it 2/3 of the way to the top with crushed ice. Now we're just going to dry shake this without ice to mix everything together. Then we're going to do this for about 10 to 15 seconds. And this drink is actually a relatively modern cocktail. It was invented in about 2018 from a guy named Brandon Bramhall at Attaboy in Nashville. Once that's all mixed together, free pour it into your glass and top with a little more crushed ice. Then we're going to garnish that with a little bit of nutmeg, and what you might be noticing now is that this drink is a little bit closer to the painkiller cocktail than the Piña Colada. Give this guy a little shade to keep the sun out of his eyes, drop in a sippy cylinder, and let's give it a taste. The Caf Colada. This drink really is something else. I wouldn't have thought all these flavors would come through, but you really can get the distinct taste of coffee and banana. It's nicely balanced. The pineapple and cream of coconut definitely give it that tropical feel. This drink is a winner. Give it a try. And finally, what if the best Piña Colada you've ever had in your life came from curdling milk using citrus? We're going to employ that technique today in a clarified milk punch. Now, some of y'all might have seen my clarified milk punch video. We're going to take the same techniques from that video and apply it to this recipe. So we're going to start by batching all of our ingredients together except for the milk into a large pitcher. Now here we're going to make enough for about 4 servings, starting with about 3 ounces or 90 mils of our fresh, strained pineapple juice. Next we need some fresh lime juice, about 2 ounces or 60 mils, and run it through a fine mesh strainer to get rid of all that pulp. Next we want a little more sweetness, just about half an ounce or 15 mils of simple syrup. The cream of coconut is going to be a bit too viscous for this method, so we're going to use coconut water instead. Pour in 4.5 ounces or about 135 mils. And this next part is optional but highly recommended. We're going to add some allspice dram. Now this here is a Jamaican liqueur that has a lot of warming spices in it. We're going to add 2 ounces or 60 mils. And for our rum, I would highly recommend a nice aged rum here, but preferably not something too funky. So here I'm going to go with a Plantation 8-year, about 8 ounces or 240 mils. Put that on spin cycle for a few seconds, and let's get to the science. Grab your whole milk, and we're going to pour about 5 ounces or 150 mils into a large bowl. There is some debate as to whether or not you should use hot or warm milk for this technique, but I find that cold milk works just fine. A general rule of thumb is to have a 4-to-1 ratio of punch to milk. Alright, now we're going to pour the punch into the milk and not vice versa so that it doesn't curdle all at once. Let's cut to the curdle cam here, and you can see we're going to do this very slowly in small amounts. Already you can see some small curds start to appear as we stir this up, as we introduce some acid into the milk. Okay, so what's happening here and why do we care? The citrus is coagulating the casein proteins in the milk, which will cause them to both trap the cloudiness-inducing particles in the punch while stripping out astringent polyphenols. Also, the whey proteins will remain in the drink, giving it a luscious mouthfeel. It's a similar process to making a consommé, which is a clear soup that uses egg whites instead of milk to clarify. Now we need to let it rest to allow it to fully curdle and settle. Now I only let it rest for about 15 to 30 minutes, but some people prefer to do it over 24 hours. Alright, now it's time to test your patience because we are going to filter this drink through a coffee filter. I find that doing it this way really means you only need to take primarily 1 pass of filtering, but it does take a little while. The one thing I do recommend is placing a small bowl underneath the filter to collect some of the initial liquid that comes through, which will tend to be a little bit cloudy before the nest of milk curdles can form at the bottom of the filter. Much of the filtering that's going to be done here is actually through those curdles themselves, not just that paper filter. So we'll start by pouring a few ounces of the liquid into the filter, and you can see it dripping down there at the bottom. Then we're going to pick that up. Notice that it's a little bit cloudy, but you can tell it is being clarified already. And then we're going to put down the filter and pour in that first batch of liquid back over the top of the filter. This step is easy and recommended to get the clearest final product. And then you're just going to very slowly pour in the remaining liquid until all of it has filtered through. Now the filtering process took about 3 hours from start to finish, and it yields about 18 ounces or a little half a liter, which is enough for about 4 cocktails. When you're done, discard those curds. I suppose you could try to make a Piña Colada cheese out of them, but wouldn't really recommend it. And then pour that into a large sealable container, and you can store this in the fridge for years. It will not spoil. To serve, just simply pour it into a rocks glass. I prefer it with ice, and if you're going to use ice, you better be using a clear ice cube for this one. Let's just take a minute and slow this down a bit. Alright, let's try our beautiful, clarified Piña Colada. Cheers. This is so delicious. The first thing you notice is that mouthfeel. It is rich and full-bodied. The taste is incredibly smooth, complex. All of the harshness seems to be rounded out. This might be one of the best things I've made. You guys have to try this out. This video is sponsored by Raycon earbuds. And I've been using their everyday E25 earbuds a lot these days, whether it's for working from home, doing home workouts, or listening to a ton of podcasts. These things are great. There's over 6 hours of playtime, really easy Bluetooth pairing, a ton of bass, and a really nice compact design that gives you a good noise isolating fit. This little compact carrying case is excellent. It can charge these earbuds over 4 times on a single charge, which is great because I find myself using these all day. And I've actually tried the earbuds from some of the other top audio brands, and I can say that these sound just as good and start at about half the price. On top of that, y'all can get an additional discount. Just click the link in the description below to get 15% off your order. Again, a big thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video. Thanks for watching, y'all. If you want more clarified milk punch, check out my other video where I go deeper into the science behind why this works and give another delicious recipe. And as always, all the recipes from this video and links to the equipment I used are on my website.